Welcome to Alexander's Wisdom, where the timeless lessons of Alexander the Great come alive. Here, we uncover the secrets of leadership, courage, and vision that shaped an empire and can inspire your life today. What makes a leader unforgettable? What separates a conqueror whose name fades with time from one whose legend endures for thousands of years? The answer lies not in wealth, not in titles, not even in the vastness of his empire. The answer lies in how he led. Alexander the Great, one of history's most extraordinary figures, built an empire stretching from Greece to India. But his true secret was not just strategy, nor ambition, nor the loyalty of his men. His true secret was this: he led from the front. When the rivers were cold, he crossed them first. When the walls were high, he climbed them first. When the arrows rained down, he raised his shield at the very front line. This was his greatest weapon, not the sword, not the spear, but his example. And today, as you listen, you will discover not just the story of Alexander's leadership, but the timeless lessons it offers to anyone who seeks to inspire, to guide, and to leave a legacy. Because the truth is simple: people do not follow words, they follow actions. They do not follow commands, they follow courage. They do not follow titles, they follow leaders who lead from the front. So let us journey back more than 2,000 years, to the dusty roads of Macedonia, to the thunder of hooves on Persian soil, to the cries of soldiers who followed a young king into the unknown. And let us unlock together the secret of Alexander's leadership. Alexander was born in 356 BC in the city of Pella, Macedonia. His father, King Philip II, was a brilliant strategist and a conqueror in his own right, forging Macedonia into a rising power. His mother, Olympias, filled him with the belief that he was destined for greatness. Some whispered that Alexander was the son of Zeus himself. From childhood, he was taught by none other than Aristotle. Imagine that, one of the greatest philosophers in history, guiding the mind of a boy who would one day change the world. Aristotle taught him logic, ethics, science, literature, but also planted within him the stories of Homer, the hero Achilles, the warrior who lived for eternal glory. Young Alexander was not content with just learning. He was restless, ambitious. At 12 years old, he tamed a wild horse named Bucephalus, a horse no one else could control. That horse would ride with him across continents, a symbol of their unbreakable bond. But destiny arrived sooner than expected. At the age of 20, Alexander's father was assassinated. In an instant, the crown of Macedonia fell on the young man's head. His kingdom was unstable. Rivals challenged his throne, enemies surrounded him. And yet, within 2 years, Alexander crushed revolts, secured his borders, and began preparing for the campaign that would define him, the conquest of the Persian Empire. His soldiers looked at him and saw not just a king, but a young man who stood beside them in battle. When they marched, he marched. When they fought, he fought. Already, the secret of his leadership was revealing itself. He did not lead from behind. He led from the front. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia Minor, the edge of the mighty Persian Empire. The Persians were waiting at the river Granicus. Their cavalry formed a wall, daring him to cross. Alexander's generals urged caution. The river was fast, the banks steep, the enemy strong, but Alexander would not hesitate. He mounted Bucephalus, rode to the front, and charged directly across the river into the Persian line. Imagine that sight. The king himself, spear in hand, water splashing around him, arrows flying past, charging straight into the heart of the enemy. His soldiers saw their leader risk everything, and in that moment, their fear turned into fire. They followed, they roared, they smashed through the Persians with unstoppable force. The Battle of Granicus ended in victory. This was the first great lesson his men learned about their king. He would always ask nothing of them that he did not demand of himself. And from that day on, his army would march into impossible odds because they believed in him. 2 years later, came one of his most legendary challenges, the city of Tyre. Tyre was considered unconquerable. It was built on an island, half a mile offshore, with walls rising 150 feet above the sea. Armies had tried before and failed. But Alexander did not believe in the word impossible. He ordered a causeway, a massive land bridge, to be built across the water. For months his men labored, under constant attack, arrows raining, ships burning. Yet Alexander was always there, walking the causeway, encouraging his men, enduring the same dangers. Finally, when the causeway reached the walls, Alexander led the final assault. Amid fire and blood, his men stormed the city. Tyre had fallen. The lesson? Obstacles that seem impossible crumble when a leader refuses to accept defeat and shows his men that the impossible is only temporary. In 331 BC came the battle that defined Alexander's legacy, Gaugamela. Facing him was King Darius III, with a force vastly larger, perhaps 5 times his numbers. Chariots armed with blades, war elephants, endless rows of soldiers stretched across the plain. Many would have retreated. Many would have hidden. But Alexander stood tall before his men. He told them, "Victory will not come from numbers, but from courage, discipline, and the will to follow your king." And then at the critical moment, Alexander personally led a cavalry charge, smashing into the Persian center. His spear broke through the enemy lines, his men thundered behind him, and the sight of their king charging forward shattered the Persian will. Darius fled. The Persian Empire crumbled. What made that victory possible? Not just tactics, but the sheer inspiration of a leader who rode into the heart of danger, showing his men that courage is stronger than fear. What was Alexander's real weapon? It wasn't the spear, it wasn't the sword, it was the mind. Alexander understood something most leaders never grasp. People do not fight only for land, or money, or survival. People fight for meaning. They fight for someone who gives them hope, who makes them feel part of something greater than themselves. This is why Alexander walked among his soldiers, speaking to them, learning their names, sharing their hardships. He wanted them to feel not like pawns in his game, but like brothers in his mission. When they were exhausted, he refused special privileges. He drank from the same water, ate the same rations. When they bled, he bled too. When they marched through burning deserts, Alexander refused to ride a horse while his men walked. He walked with them, his armor heavy, his face burning under the same sunday. Imagine the power of that image. The king himself, dusty and tired, yet enduring everything his soldiers endured. What message does that send? It says, "We are one. I will not demand of you what I do not demand of myself." And this is the secret of psychology and leadership. People give their best not when they are ordered, but when they are inspired. Not when they are pushed, but when they are pulled by the vision and the example of their leader. Alexander mastered this truth. And that is why his men followed him across thousands of miles, into battles that seemed unwinnable, into lands they had never seen, facing dangers they could barely imagine. But let us be clear, leading from the front has a price. Alexander paid that price in blood. He was wounded many times, struck by arrows, cut by swords, crushed by stones. In one campaign in India, an arrow pierced his lung. His men thought their king was dead, but even then, Alexander would not stay behind. Once he recovered enough to stand, he appeared before his army, weak but alive. He raised his hand, and the roar of his soldiers shook the camp. Why? Because they saw that their leader would rather risk death with them than live safely without them. This is the burden of leadership. It is not comfort, it is not privilege, it is sacrifice. A leader must carry weight that others do not. A leader must walk into storms that others fear. A leader must risk wounds, physical, emotional, spiritual. And Alexander's life shows us both the glory and the danger of this truth. His courage made him unforgettable, but it also pushed him to the edge, driving him into exhaustion, leaving him vulnerable, and eventually contributing to his early death at only 32 years old. The lesson for us? Leadership is not free. If you choose to lead, you must be prepared to pay the cost in effort, in pain, in responsibility. Now, you may ask, what does this mean for me? I am not a king. I do not command armies. But leadership is not about crowns or empires. Leadership is about influence. Every one of us is a leader in some way. You lead your family, you lead your friends, you lead your team, your business, your community. And the principles Alexander lived by still apply today. If you want respect, earn it by example. Don't demand it, show it. If you want loyalty, give loyalty first. Stand with your people, not above them. If you want results, show your own discipline, your own courage, your own sacrifice. Think about the leaders we admire in modern times. They are not the ones who hide behind luxury. They are the ones who walk into the storm with their people. The ones who work late when others are tired. The ones who pick up the weight that no one else will carry. Leadership in the 21st century may not involve swords and shields, but the principle is timeless. Lead from the front. And so we return to Alexander. When he died in Babylon at the age of 32, his empire stretched farther than anyone had imagined. But more than the land he conquered, more than the cities he built, more than the wealth he gained, it was his example that endured. For over 2,000 years, generals, kings, politicians, and thinkers have studied his life. Some admire him, some criticize him, but all agree on one thing: there was never another leader quite like him. Because Alexander taught us that the heart of leadership is not command, but courage, not position, but presence, not speeches, but sacrifice. And so I ask you, in your own life, where are you standing? Are you behind, giving orders from safety? Or are you at the front, showing the way? Because the truth is simple but powerful. True leaders do not stand behind. True leaders stand with their people. True leaders lead from the front. Alexander's life is more than history. It is a mirror, a challenge, a call. When you face hardship, remember Alexander charging across the river. When you face impossibility, remember Alexander building a road to the island. When you face fear, remember Alexander leading the charge at Gaugamela. And when you wonder if you can lead, remember his secret: you must go first. So today, ask yourself, where must I lead from the front? Where must I step into the fire before others? Where must I show the courage I wish to see? Because leadership is not given by titles, it is not granted by crowns, it is chosen every day in every action. Lead your life, lead your family, lead your mission. And when the world remembers you, let them say not just that you spoke, but that you lived. Not just that you commanded, but that you inspired. Like Alexander the Great, the king who led from the front. Please like and subscribe to the channel to receive the next videos.